Hi, folks. John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melior Via. I'm up here today at Immortals Inc. with Mikey.
What is up, John? I know we're talking about something that's a little different from what we're thinking, but let you take it away.
Well, I did promise recently we were going to do some Cthulhu material.
Yes.
And this is the second that we're recording of these Cthulhu books. And this one is Arkham, new source book for Call of Cthulhu. Arkham...
Source book, wow.
Well, yeah.
Nice.
Arkham is kind of the default campaign setting for 1920s Call of Cthulhu. This book is by Mike Mason, Keith Herber, and Brett Kramer. It's the 4th edition. There was previously one in 1990, again in 93 and 2003. Keith Herbert passed away, unfortunately, in 2009, so his work on this is the stuff that was done prior to that for the previous editions. I think Mike Mason did a lot of the heavy lifting on this one, and both Mike and Brett have many Cthulhu-related credits. It does pull from many other sources as well. In fact, there's a full page right at the start of the book that talks about, hey, we grabbed this material from here and this material from here. Arkham has, for a very long time, been that part of Massachusetts where Cthulhu stuff happens. It's the region that has the most ties into Lovecraft's work, especially stuff that, wasn't happening in Rhode Island. And so because of that, it's very archetypical for Call of Cthulhu. If you're going to be running a Call of Cthulhu campaign, you should probably have a pretty solid handle on Arkham, and this book is really, of all the iterations of it, the most comprehensive one that's ever been produced.
Probably very low Airbnb reservations in Arkham.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend spending too much time there.
Yeah, figured.
But, they've got a great school.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
This moves the timeline back to 1922. The previous campaign setting books had used 1928, but basically they said, hey, we want to give you more of the decade to play around with. The geography very much matches the layout in the Arkham Horror board game, if you're familiar with that from Fantasy Flight. And you open up with a history of the region that goes from the 1600s up to the 1920s. There's some great period maps in here. You got a Miskatonic Valley overview and a lot of newspaper clippings in here, which I just love.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think those are really evocative of, the preeminent media of the 1920s, right? And that's all in chapter 1, just kind of the overview of the book. Chapter 2 is the Arkham Investigator chapter, and it kind of tweaks the character creation rules, just optimizing them a little bit for when characters might be active or based in Arkham. And there's a really cool reputation system that's integrated here for how the characters tie into the town. I think this could be useful really for any Call of Cthulhu game that's going to be primarily in one locale, because it's setting up what folks in the neighborhood think about your characters. Do they think, wow, he's nuts because he's always breaking into houses and stealing things, or, leaving carved up bodies in the wake of where they go? Or do they think, hey, this is a good guy, he's helping out the community, and we'll just ignore some of that other stuff that he does, right?
Aside.
And then we get some detailed descriptions of the different organizations that are active in Arkham. Chapter 3 is called Arkham Miscellany, and it covers accommodations. So if your characters aren't from Arkham or aren't permanent residents of Arkham, where they might want to stay. You get some resources for individuals with whom they might want to consult. So basically subject matter experts, like the librarian, just as a random relevant example, or somebody who's in a museum, or a translator, or a religious specialist. These kind of characters are ones that your PCs might need to look up in the course of their investigations. And so you get some great hooks for that too. There's a whole section of gossip. So what people are talking about in Arkham.
Ooh.
And many of these could very conveniently be adventure hooks.
Are there a lot of soccer moms in Arkham?
Well, it's the 20s. Soccer just isn't huge.
Yeah, you're right. It's not
the
that
US
big
just yet. I mean, certainly people played it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the dominant.
They weren't taking their kids to soccer practice.
Exactly.
They were
not really.
industrializing them.
Well, I mean, baseball was a lot bigger then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got the
And then there's discussion of the Arkham Coven. So kind of the spellcasting types, how they're interacting and what plans they have going on. And that gets more pages than I was expecting it to get.
Yeah,
because
it can't be anything good.
No, it really can't. And then chapter 4 is the bulk of this book. It's about 180. Actually, it's a little more than 180 pages. And this is the Guide to Arkham. It opens up with a directory, and then it breaks down 9 different neighborhoods. And each of those get a list of businesses, background information on those businesses, and fully statted non-player characters. I was really impressed at the amount of material that was just packed in here and the number of different options that characters have to explore. There's so much here that I feel a game master would really need to sit down and kind of study this material to be prepared for the characters to just go anywhere. You've got your north side, which is mostly your commercial, financial area, but it also has some mansions and the Potter's Field and a really cool speakeasy. Downtown is mostly civic services, but you also have the sanitarium and the library. East Town is mostly a residential area. Then there's a merchant district, which is mostly commercial, but has the old wooded graveyard and some very interesting specialty shops that might deal in materials of particular interest to player characters. There's Rivertown, which is kind of a tradesfolk and residential area with, again, some very relevant specialty trades for the characters. Then there's the campus, which has Miskatonic University, as well as museums and a library all associated with the university, and nice detailed descriptions of a lot of the faculty members, some of whom may have shown up in other products. Then we have French Hill, which is a residential area, but also has the Witch House, which, if you've played Arkham Horror, is kind of a big locale that shows up there, as well as in other media. Then there's Uptown, which is mostly residential, but had a couple of family names that jumped out at me, like Armitage and Derby. And then there's the lower south side, which is poorer residential area primarily. And then there's a whole section about the outskirts, which includes the dump. And you never know what you might find in a dump.
Yeah, not a great nickname.
Well, it's a literal town dump, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not just...
So it is a great nickname.
Yeah, it's descriptive.
Pretty great.
And then the airfield and a few other locations. An airfield in 1920 is kind of a big deal, right? For them to even have it. After that, there's the appendices. You get a name generator, which is kind of useful if you need to create some NPCs in quick order. A detailed chronology, some game aids, which there's more here than I was expecting. You get seasonal weather, you get hotels, you get reputations, you get coven holidays, and you get travel distances for a whole lot of other relevant locales outside of Arkham. There's a selection of 21 generic NPCs, a really useful bibliography, and a solid index. And then there's some handouts and other materials that are kind of packed into the back, which is why I've left this one shrink wrapped, because Carlos gets upset when we have stuff falling out of the books.
People love looking at the pages, though.
This is 266 pages from Chaosium. It's hardcover. It's full color. It's $60. We got copies here on the shelf at Immortals Inc. or hit us up at immortalsinc.com.
Very well said, John. I mean, this is not the Arkham I know, but this is the Arkham that seems pretty crazy. So take a look. Have a good one.
Till next time, folks. Good gaming.